From the high desert in the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world's prolific time zones, each and every one covered by this program, the very largest of its kind in the world. It's called Coast to Coast AM, and it certainly is my honor and privilege to be escorting you through now the second half of the weekend. Great to be here. Next hour, Robert Collins, first-time guest on the program. If you've ever wanted the lowdown on Wright-Patt Air Force Base and their part in ufology, he's going to be the guy. Also, underground tunnels and bunkers, Los Alamos, Dulce, Area 51S4, the whole shooting match. Coming up next hour. All right, I want to remind the audience, next Friday is the tentative birth, the scheduled birth of Asia Rain Bell, June 1st. So, presuming it's going to be on schedule, and I do, I'll be gone next weekend, enjoying the birth of my daughter. What a miracle. There's just no other way to describe it. It's a miracle. Every time it happens, it's a miracle. And somebody sent me an email and said it's God's way of saying the world should go on. And I agree with that. All right, let's look for a moment at the world. Riverside, California. You remember the blaze that killed 5 federal firefighters last year? It has now emboldened those who question the cost of saving the ever-expanding number of homes on the fringe of wilderness. The 5 perished last fall while protecting an empty mountain vacation home from the Southern California fire that authorities say was started by a 36-year-old auto mechanic now charged with murder, I would think. 5 dead. American forces freed 42 kidnapped Iraqis. Some of them had been hung from ceilings, and they'd been obviously tortured for months. In a raid Sunday on an al-Qaeda hideout north of Baghdad, U.S. military officials said the operation, launched on tips from residents, showed that Iraqis in the turbulent province were beginning to turn against Sunni insurgents and beginning to trust U.S. troops. Good, I guess. The 7 women pooled money, this is in Darfur, to rent a donkey and a cart, then ventured out of the refugee camp to gather firewood, hoping to sell it for cash to feed their families. Instead, they say, a wooded area just a few hours walk away, they were gang raped, beaten, and robbed. Naked and devastated, they fled back to Kaima in Darfur. A U.S. immigration agencies say that anti-terrorism is their primary mission. Now, this is interesting, but if you look carefully, they tried to deport only 12 people on terrorism-related charges from 2004 through 2006. According to a private research study released Sunday, the group of 12 represents a tiny fraction the 814,073 people the government tried to remove from the country during those 3 years. The study's authors acknowledged the figure understates the anti-terrorism effort by the Homeland Security Department's immigration agencies. I would say this. I was talking to Whitley a little earlier in the evening, and I think that we owe a debt of gratitude to Homeland Security. Because since 9/11, nothing that we know about has happened. Really, not here in the U.S. And I think they've stopped a lot. And I think when they stop something, potentially even having stopped a nuclear incident, putting it that way, we don't hear about it. So these poor agencies catch a lot of criticism, for the times when something gets through, but they don't get credit when they catch somebody and keep it quiet or catch something about to happen. So I think they deserve a lot more credit. Iran summoned the Swiss ambassador Sunday to protest what it recently called uncovered U.S. espionage network. State television reported the day before the Islamic Republic planned ambassador-level talks with the U.S. on Iraq. The Iranian Foreign Ministry's head of American Affairs met with the ambassador, Philip Welty, demanded a necessary explanation of spy networks Iran said it had uncovered on Saturday. Well, I'm sure we've got them. Interesting, Las Vegas. Workers pulled gallery platinum records out of cardboard boxes on Sunday ahead of what's being called the largest auction of Jackson family memorabilia ever. Auction staff unpacked and displayed more than 1,100 lots, including rhinestone-studded costumes, faded documents, and other mementos at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. The items are expected to fetch, get this, millions of dollars from bidders from around the globe. Get your bid in now. All right, that's the way the world looks. Never all that great. In a moment, we'll look into some other news. Well, this is certainly interesting. The Milky Way in infrared, as it's seen today, in 3 trillion years, physicist Lawrence Krauss and Robert J. Shearer predict that only an island universe made from the Milky Way and its nearby galactic local group neighbors will be even perceivable in an overwhelmingly dark void. We're going to be alone. Science Daily, when Dutch astronomer William de Sitter proposed a static model of the universe in the early 1900s, he was about 3 trillion years ahead of his time. Now, physicist Lawrence Krauss from Case Western Reserve University and Robert J. Shearer from Vanderbilt University predict that trillions of years into the future, the information that currently allows us to understand how the universe expands will have all disappeared over the visible horizon. What remains will be an island universe made from the Milky Way and its nearby galactic local group neighbors in an overwhelmingly dark void. The researchers' article, The Return of the Static Universe and the End of Cosmology, was awarded one of the top prizes for 2007 by the Gravity Research Foundation. It will be published in the October issue of the Journal of Relativity and Gravitation. So that's our deep, dark future, assuming that we make 3 trillion years from now, and that's a hell of an assumption. All right, here's the lead story on Whitley's site. NASA scientist warns of catastrophic sea level. Dr. J.E. Hansen, who is nothing other than head of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Science and their lead climate scientist, is warning that sea levels could rise 15 feet over the next 100 years, and saying that the scientific community's fear of saying this publicly is threatening our ability to act before it is too late. Sea level rise will cause a continuous catastrophe starting much sooner, as one low-lying area after another is submerged and storm surges become steadily more dangerous. Hansen says, quote, I suggest that a scientific reticence is inhibiting the communication of a threat of a potentially large sea level rise. Delay is dangerous because of system inertias that could create a situation with future sea level changes out of our control. I argue for calling together a panel of scientific leaders to hear evidence and issue a prompt, plain, written report on current understanding of the sea level change issue. One man they really cannot quiet, Dr. Hansen. In the UK, 11 species of butterflies are making their earliest recorded appearances this spring. Now, that means they'll die off earlier in the season as well, since butterflies typically live for a very short time anyway. Some species of butterflies are in the UK. They're being seen in new areas. Reports on butterfly populations in the U.S. are not available, probably because of the lid put on reporting about global warming by the administration. A team of American and Irish researchers have discovered that some female sharks can reproduce without even having sex. First time that scientists have found the unusual capacity in such ancient vertebrate species. They report that sharks can reproduce asexually through a process known as pathogenesis is being published online today in the British journal Biology Letters. Researchers have observed pathogenesis in certain species of birds, reptiles, amphibians, and bony fishes, but the new findings suggest that vertebrates' ability to reproduce without sex evolved much earlier than scientists had thought. I wonder if men, guys, us, if we were to disappear from the face of the earth, would that be the end of humanity? Or would the human female species begin to asexually reproduce? Scary thought. For the first time, astronomers have discovered a planet far, far away that might be very similar to Earth. I told you about this some time ago. This distant world, which pirouettes around a dim bulb of a star with the unglamorous name Gliese 581, may possibly sport a landscape that would be vaguely familiar to us. A panorama of liquid oceans, drifting continents. If so, there's a chance it may be home to life, perhaps even advanced life. It is so interesting, as a matter of fact, that SETI is going to take another look. Now, it would be hard because it's 20 light years away. That means we would have to send a signal and say, "How are you?" That would take 20 years to get there. They would say, "We're fine." That would take another 20 years to get back. Now they found another planet, a bizarre world of scorching hot ice, shrouded in a steamy atmosphere that may have been found, mind you, characterizing the Neptune-sized planet as an important milestone on the way to detecting and characterizing Earth-like planets that could harbor life. Astronomers have discovered now more than 200 planets orbiting other stars called extrasolar planets or exoplanets, if you will. Almost all of these were detected by the way their gravity makes the parent stars wobble, but this technique called the radial velocity method reveals very little about the planet except for the size of the orbit and an estimated size of the mass. Astronomers can learn a lot more by watching transits of planets that pass in front of their parent stars as seen from Earth. Careful analysis of the dimming this causes can provide clues to the planet's composition and structure, but the brightness dips are small, difficult to detect for all but the very largest planets. So it's another one. We're almost daily now discovering a new planet. Pretty cool, huh? Listen, we're about to go into open lines. If you would like to get through, two things to keep in mind. One, when you answer the phone, you hear me say, "Hey, whatever line, you're on the air." That's a clue. Immediately turn your radio off before you say another word. And then, of course, try and make whatever you're going to say interesting for all of the audience. If you're west of the Rockies, out here in the west, 800-618-8255 will do the trick. East of the Rockies, 800-825-5033. First-time folks, we love you. Area code 818-501-4721. Wildcard line, we've got a lot of those. Area code 818-501-4109. And if you're outside the country altogether, we can accommodate you toll-free. Call your overseas operator and have her connect you to 800-893-0903. That's 800-893-0903. We may be able to travel to that newly discovered Earth-like planet sooner than we think, since a physicist believes he's found a way to travel at least close to the speed of light. SciSorg.com reports that researcher Franklin Fieber is making discoveries that will solve, quote, the two greatest engineering challenges to near the speed of light, identifying an energy source capable of producing the acceleration and limiting stresses on humans and equipment during rapid acceleration. He says, based on this research, I expect a mission to accelerate a massive payload to, quoting, a good fraction of light speed, end quote, will be launched before the end of the century. These anti-gravity solutions of Einstein's theory can change our view of our ability to travel to the far reaches of the universe. Sharks and whales, by the way, are not the only sea creatures being fished into extinction. The fish that much of the world relies on for food is now going extinct as well. Part of the cause may be global warming. Most of it, though, can be blamed on simply overfishing. In BBC News, Richard Black writes, quote, there'll be virtually nothing left to fish from the seas by the middle of the century if the current trends continue. According to a major scientific study, he quotes researcher Steve Columbi as saying, quote, unless we fundamentally change the way we manage all the ocean species together as working ecosystems, then this century is the last century of wild seafood. God, that really is, there it is again. The end of the end of fish in the ocean. That's really something to contemplate. West of the Rockies, good morning. You're on the air.
Hello there.
Hi.
Question for you, Matt, Oregon. Curious to see if you guys are interested in doing a special on, I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, but the Maltunk chair.
I'm sorry, what chair?
The Maltunk chair.
Oh, explain what it is.
Apparently, it's a chair that gives you remote viewing capabilities, and I've heard that it is somewhere in New York, some kind of an underground lab or something like that. Nothing too spectacular of a chair, but...
Okay, well, I haven't heard about it, and I can't imagine why you need a chair to do remote viewing. I'm fairly familiar with the protocols, having interviewed most of the remote viewers, and none of them specified a specific chair as being necessary.
Yeah, I don't know if it's pronounced Maltunk or Malhunk, but yeah, maybe I'll dig up a little information and try and shoot an email to you. See if
All right, but yes, please do that. I'm Art Bell, ARTBELL at AOL.com or Mindspring.com. Actually, you probably should make it Mindspring. It holds more mail. Art Bell at Mindspring.com. All right, first-time caller line, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. How you doing? It's Mike.
Very well, sir. Where are you?
This is Mikey in Salem, Oregon.
Okay.
Art, I just have two things for you real quick. One, when Asia Rain makes her way to you, make sure you get plenty of sleep this week.
Well, you know what we're going to do? We're on this, because of the work I do, we're on a stay up late, get up late kind of deal. And we've got to get up at 8 o'clock on Friday morning to go in and do all this. And then, of course, obviously, once Israel gets home, we're going to be up all the time. So I take a lot of meaning from what you say.
Yeah, I had all the warning in the world, never thought twice about it, but once my son was here, look out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, thank you for that, sir, but I've thought a lot about it.
And also, I had a quick impersonation for you.
Okay.
Here's my impersonation of JC for you. Mr. Bell, you are the devil.
That's pretty good.
Sorry, I couldn't help it. But...
That's actually pretty good, my friend. JC made it in during the latter part of the first hour last night, and it was actually good to hear his voice.
I missed it, but
yeah.
Art, I wish you the best this week.
Okay, thank you very, very much. It is going to be a pretty wild week around here, and I guess that's only the beginning. But there you go. West of the Rockies, I'm sorry, you're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
San Diego, Kogo 600.
Yes, sir.
Hey, can I ask you about pizzapunch.com?
It's artbellspizzapunch.com.
Correct. And I went up 4 weeks ago to my neighbor who has a computer.
Yes.
Logged on to the website.
Yes.
Ordered 3 bottles.
Yes, sir.
Put in my debit card number.
Mm-hmm.
They charged my debit card amount, but I've got no pizza punch.
It'll be coming, don't worry. We've had gazillions of orders. They now go straight to the Santa Barbara Olive Oil Company, I guess, to be fulfilled. And so rest easy. It'll be there. I've had zillions of emails from people who have received it and absolutely love it. So.
Well, I'm waiting, man. I'm waiting. But I sent them 2 emails, went up to my neighbor and said, hey, log on there again, and sent them 2 emails. Gave them my phone number. I thought they'd call me and say, hang on. It'll be there.
All right, well, back it up with an email to me. Maybe something got lost in the shuffle, but almost everybody's getting it.
At artbellmindspring.com.
Artbell at mindspring.com, that's right.
Okay, and hey, Art, do you know that I can scan my radio and pick you up on at least 5 different stations?
Really?
Yeah. I've got Kogo 600. I can go to KFI 640. And
Are you an AMDXer?
No, wait a minute. Ask me again.
Are you an AMDXer? That means somebody who tries to see how many stations and how far away he can hear?
No. Sometimes I just start playing with the stations because I get bored with life.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun to do. That's a hobby I've been engaged in for years and years now.
It's like...
if you get a good radio and a good antenna, you just won't believe the faraway stations that you can log and hear.
Oh, I think most of these are coming out of San Diego or this area.
Oh, no. At night, my friend, with a good antenna and a good radio, you can actually listen to the world. I mean, you can hear virtually the whole world. In the early hours of the morning, particularly nearing sunrise, you get unusual conditions. And if you're listening very carefully, and you know what to listen for, you can hear little islands in the Pacific. You can hear the Caribbean, South America. The whole world opens up to you. AMDXing. That is to say, listening for faraway AM stations is absolutely a blast. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell. We'll be right back. We've had a lot of people that have talked about Area 51 over the years, very few that have talked about Wright Pat, and certainly of them, nobody who was ever actually in the Air Force there as a guest telling us about Wright Pat, but that's what's up on the board for tonight. Coming up in about a half hour. Between now and then, nothing but unscreened open line calls. We'll be right back. Incidentally, the chair referred to by the caller earlier apparently was a Montauk chair associated allegedly with time travel, not remote viewing, although perhaps there's, in a way, a kind of a connection. Let's go east of the Rockies and say howdy. You're on the air.
Hey, what's up, Art?
You at the moment, sir.
Great question for you. Haven't heard from the GIS in a while. Are they
scheduled for a show very soon?
Okay, wonderful. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the call and the question, I guess. I have yet, after all these years, to shoot any holes in what the GIS does, and therefore it is scary. It really is scary to hear those voices and not know where they're coming from. And, you know, there's a limited number of places they can be coming from. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. This is Tommy from Seattle.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell you and the audience some interesting information that happened to me during the third time that I was abducted by these gray aliens.
Okay.
They had me on the infamous steel table running my memories by recording them, and I was hostile about having my privacy invaded. And I said, what in the hell are you guys doing to me? And they said, physical exam. And I said, I really blew up then. I said, 50,000 years and you guys are going to learn something from me on a physical exam? And they says, well, the psychological exam is part of the physical. And that shut me up. They were about to send me back, and I asked them, I says, what do you guys know about God? Okay. And
it's a very good question. And how did they answer?
And everything in the room stopped, and they stared at me, and one of them said that it is a semi-eternal group of beings that run the galaxy, seeding life.
Okay, semi-eternal doesn't make sense. Eternal is forever, semi is less than ever.
I asked them what they meant about that, and they said that these guys could die if they wanted to.
Okay.
They were semi-eternal, and they could die if they wanted to, or they could live on forever.
That in itself is an interesting concept, isn't it? Would you want to live forever? And if so, when might you actually have had enough life and just say, I'm done? Yeah.
Well, they went on to say that all the 18 gray races and all the other races in the galaxy were slowly evolving into these energy beings. And this was the ultimate end of evolution.
Actually, in a way, sir, that also makes sense, that the ultimate evolutionary path would lead to pure energy. It is very interesting.
Yes.
Okay, well, listen, I very much appreciate your call, and if you'd like to fire me an email, maybe we could find out more from you, but that's all very interesting, isn't it? Semi-eternal. In other words, you could choose to end your life if you wanted to, otherwise you would be eternal. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Art, Gary, San Antonio, thanks for taking my call, sir.
You betcha.
3 quick things. You were mentioning about things dying in the ocean. The book of Revelation, the Bible declares that all life in the oceans will die.
Right.
Point 2, the solution to the Iraqi war dilemma. Listen closely. The problem is the continual influx of new insurgents and their weapons coming into Iraq from other nations.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively plug those holes and you win the war. Here's how you do it. There's about 2,500 miles of Iraqi border. A designated border crossing every 20 miles would equal about 125 border crossings. fill those billets with about 1,000 U.S.-trained Iraqi soldiers, break them up into squad-size units, and deploy them every 20 miles along the common borders between Iraq and her neighbors. 20 miles is line of sight. Couple that with binoculars equipped with starlight and infrared for night vision. Each squad can see all the way to the next border crossing on each side.
And by the time you got done, sir, you'd have better border protection than we have here in the U.S. Now, let me offer a rebuttal to what you just said. Assuming that we could do what you said, why not, on the other hand, let them come in because they're hell-bent on killing us and kill them, which is what's going on right now.
Why not kill them when they try to come in?
That'd be good, too, I suppose.
And we can use unmanned drones between border crossings 24/7. And anyone coming through, there's signs posted, deadly force unless you use the designated border crossings. You cut off the head of the snake.
How do you feel about applying the same kind of security to our own borders?
I'm not arguing with you there, sir, only I don't see deadly force authorized between us and Mexico. This is how to win the war. Cut off the supply of troops and weapons, and you'll defeat him.
I really think you're on to something there.
I think it's a good idea. Bugs' Bigfoot dilemma. Here's the solution. It's so simple. Bugs, or someone he knows, Bugs is the guy that shot a couple of creatures,
right,
for anyone who's wondering who Bugs is. Bugs, or someone he knows and trusts, goes to the location where the two creatures are buried and gathers some hair and skin samples. Then he or you or whoever sends those samples to two independent labs for DNA analysis. When the reports come in that state unequivocally that the creatures are not of human origin, Bugs can then be relieved of his grief that he may have inadvertently shot some primitive humans. He'll also be free of the fear of retribution by the law. He can then exhume the carcasses and present them to the scientific community for further examination. If on the outside chance the creatures do prove to be human, then Bugs can stop wondering about it and make his peace. No harm, no foul.
Again, I agree with you completely. The hitch there, of course, is getting the people and the labs who would do the work and, I guess, protect Bugs along the way. Now, his idea about the border was probably a good one. After all, the insurgents are pouring in across the borders. There's no question about it. I guess in some ways, and I've said this before, we're there now, and I'm not going to argue anymore about the wisdom of going into Iraq in the first place or not. Fact is, we're there. So what do? I guess we continue to fight those that want to kill us, but there's got to be an exit or pacification strategy, a workable one, drawn up somewhere along the line. We just don't see it happening yet, and it certainly is a real puzzle. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello? Going once, going twice, gone west of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Bell. Thank you so much for taking my call. I do believe that was very excellent, his suggestions about Bigfoot and how to exit Iraq. I do believe that if we went back to the way they were covering Vietnam and show each and every one of those coffins,
yeah, I know,
come back, and we'll say, oh, no, we got to relive that nightmare. Myself, I'm retired Air Force, so I'm totally supporting those troops 100% because when I was 9 years old, we were getting letters from a classmate's brother who was in the trenches, in country, writing by, burning the midnight oil, and writing letters, and just, we totally supported him. We love that guy. I think
just about everybody, you don't hear anybody who doesn't support the troops. That's just plain anti-American. Everybody supports the troops. It is important to draw a line between supporting the troops and supporting the fact of the war itself. Actually, I'm pretty close to supporting both at this point. I thought it was foolish prior to our going in. I didn't support it. And those of you who are longtime listeners know that. But we're there now, and I really do believe that we are fighting an enemy that ultimately, perhaps not right away, but ultimately, given a free hand to take Iraq and turn it again into something awful, would then sponsor across the seas as many people to kill Americans as they could muster. I don't think there's a whole lot of doubt about that, and you really should keep that in mind before saying we should just pack up and go away. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, my name is John.
Yes, John.
I'm calling from North Carolina.
Right.
And I just wanted to share about a 10,000-mile ghost hunt on a motorcycle. I'm going to take off on June the 1st and cover the entire United States, mostly in the Northwest, down the West Coast, and then back the southern route all the way back to North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm going to try to tackle the Northwest. I hadn't been up in that area that much, but when I go down the West Coast, I'm going to be in search for Marilyn Monroe's ghost, and then down through in the Hollywood, California area. And
just a big question for you. Why do you feel as though you have to physically travel to find Marilyn's or anybody else's ghost? If you might be able to conjure them up right there in North Carolina and save yourself and others the CO2 in the atmosphere and the gas prices.
Well, that's true, and but I have such a large appetite for ghost hunting. I've already covered coast to coast before, but it's just the thrill of going to places at a fast rate, because I feel like when I go to places at a rate like that I kind of bring ghosts with me, if that makes any sense. Like when I go into places and go to other places, it kind of somehow or another either comes with me, or when I go to the other place, it's more out to be more attracted to me. And then
okay, well, listen, I wish you all the luck in the world, and I guess you're born to be haunted. Not everybody will get that. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. Thanks for taking my call. This is Lou calling from Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
And I want to offer up a couple of things. First, I want to congratulate you and your wife, and good luck this week.
Thank you.
I'd like to offer my version of what I think would be a solution for the border problem here in the U.S. and Mexico.
Okay.
It would be Mexican football, American style. If you can envision, like a football team, you have a defensive line, right? What we would do would be to offer two categories of jobs for the Mexicans that are here already. One would be to construct a wall, and the second ones would be to actually patrol the border. Now, their incentive would be that the people that they catch trying to come in, every time they do that, they score points. And whoever scores a certain amount of points first gets 2 years, and you get your citizens in 2 years. If you only catch a couple, you get it in 3 or 4 years. And if you don't catch any, well, as long as you build a wall, you'll get it in 5 years. Let them earn their way that way. So that way, the Mexicans that are here can help us control the Mexicans who are trying to come in, and then they can be the front line, and what we can do is use American resources to be like the linebackers and spread them out and keep an eye on them.
So like a giant football game with the point system attached. I don't know. Well, it shows people are out there thinking anyway, right? The point system, like a football game. All right, east of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Oh, hi. Good evening, Art.
Good evening.
My name is Kim. I'm in Florida. And you asked how we would end the suffering and the senseless slaughter in Iraq,
yes.
The killing of our young soldiers.
Yes.
Well, I'm serious. This is what I would do. I would put Bush, Cheney, the Israeli Ariel Sharon, his agents Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl, and Fife in straitjackets. I would load them onto a cargo plane, fly them to Iraq, and push them out over Baghdad.
Uh-huh. This whole concept has been considered before. For example, take the world leaders, and instead of having a war that involves all the citizens, the able-bodied citizens of the individual associated countries, you take the leaders and let them fight it out. But that doesn't work. It's just sort of I guess, a satisfying intellectual exercise. Now, I thought the straight jackets was kind of a macabre touch. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, hello.
This is Marcos from Texas.
Hey, Marcos.
Hey, I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the snowball Earth theory, or if you've heard anything about it.
Well, it was touched on last night.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was an interesting theory. You know, with all the global warming talk that's going on, and how people don't see us leading into an ice age just because the Earth is warming, but I guess it's a possibility that it could be.
I watched a couple of anti-global warming pieces on the internet earlier today, and it was interesting. They made their points as well. So, I don't know. By fire or ice, I haven't figured it out fully yet, but I'd put my money, I think, on fire or heat.
I see. Well, I also thought there was one other interesting thing about it, how the scientist that was working on it, his question was, where would life be if at all, if the Earth was totally frozen? And he discovered that when ice, melts at a fast rate, it gets cloudy. But when it melts at a very slow rate, it's very clear. And any sunlight would go straight through to the middle. And he found that there would be some kind of algae or some kind of life somewhere, even if the Earth was completely frozen.
Oh, I agree with that. Thank you. Certainly life is incredible. The places life can exist where you never would imagine it to be so. The volcano vents, very, very deep in the ocean harbor life. Life surrounds them. It's just amazing. There's life going on in places that, well, if you apply the standard of where life can exist here to even some of the harsher planets that we've examined and declared unlivable, there would be some form of life, assuming that life is abundant. And I do. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. It's John from calling for the Poconos of Pennsylvania.
Yes, John.
Hey, I'm calling about those Chad photos.
Yes.
Of the drone. Very classic photos. I'm just surprised nobody else has done this yet, but I head Pocono Paranormal Research, my wife Liza, and my friend David, and we did some research on these, and we drew them in on Paint Shop Pro, drew them in really good, negative image, and it's blatantly obvious that they're cut and paste. I don't know if anybody else has done this, or you.
Yeah, I've had a number of fast blasts saying the same sort of thing. I don't know. It's an odd-looking thing that to me looks odd and terrestrial. I said that last night. Instead of some sort of extraterrestrial, it looks like a terrestrial oddity of some sort to me. Mm-hmm. But you're claiming it's cut and paste, huh?
It looks like it. I want to believe in this. I believe all of us, actually, of Pocono Paranormal, believe that there's something visiting this planet. But I just think that somebody did an elaborate hoax, and it's carrying on, and it's becoming a farce upon itself.
Yeah, could be. It certainly could be. I followed it to some degree. I think Chad has not yet. We don't know where he is, do we? So we don't know a lot more about this. It is fascinating. I've looked at the photograph 6 ways from Sunday myself. The fact that Photoshop, I guess, can be seen having been used doesn't mean a whole lot, because it could have been just to get it up there. It could have been a lot of things, and they do have the original photographs. Very quickly, first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi. How are you guys? Happy Memorial Weekend.
Very same to you, sir. Not a lot of time. Turn your radio off and plow away.
Well, I just wanted to offer my opinion on the illegal immigrants and our borders around here. I think it's a safe bet to say that a lot of them are coming over here to fill the jobs that American workers aren't willing to do for the rate of pay for these jobs.
That's true.
So why don't we pay an American worker a decent wage to do these jobs, and will we continue to have this problem?
Well, I guess the jobs are not worth what an American would be willing to do them for.
So if we did pay them a decent American wage to do a lot of these jobs.
Well, then you'd have Americans doing them, I would guess. But again, the jobs are not willing to pay the kind of money that Americans would demand to do those jobs. And that's why we need those workers. And we do need them. The U.S. government recognizes that, and that's why we have a program to bring them in. I'm Art Bell. This is what I've been waiting for, and I hope our telephone connection holds up. I understand it's been a little problematic, but Robert Collins was career Air Force, serving in the fields of avionics, ground communications, engineering, physics, and intelligence, Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patt, gaining an in-depth understanding of all the career fields. After 22 years, he left public service to pursue the subject of UFOs full-time, living on an Air Force retirement, supplemented by odd jobs. In his many adventures within the Air Force, he was tuned into the world of UFOs by Ernie Kellerstrauss, I believe it is, in 1985. Ernie was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel who worked at the FTD, that would be Foreign Technology Division, until retiring. After performing some research, he concluded that the government UFO cover-up was real and went to great lengths to uncover the cover-up, which spanned over 60 years. So, in a moment, Robert Collins. First time on the air on Coast to Coast AM, Robert Collins, welcome.
How you doing, Art?
I'm doing very well indeed. Great to have you on the program, and I've been looking forward to this because I've heard so much about...
I hope it's not rumors and propaganda.
about Wright-Patt, and you seem to know quite a bit. What Robert, got you involved in ufology, period?
What am I involved? No, just about everything, anything and everything, from Area 51 to Los Alamos to...
Oh, no, not what you're involved in, but what got you involved. There's got to be a trigger event, something that got you started.
Well, let's see here. Okay, now I know where you're coming from. Well, it started back in, 1985, when I was sitting there as an analyst in the Foreign Technology Division in the field of theoretical physics and just chatting away with people there. And all of a sudden the subject of UFOs came up, and one of those people in the office said, well, there's somebody you want to talk to. And so he gave me the name of one Ernie Kellerstrauss, and of course by that time Ernie was retired. And I called Ernie, and he gave me one walloping story, which I'll never forget to this day. And
so, but the initial conversation, I mean, did you initiate it? Did you sit across the table from somebody and say, what do you know about UFOs?
Well, for some reason, when you're in a vault there, all the kinds of information fly around within the vault, and the subject of UFOs just came up. I don't know whether I brought it up or somebody else did, and then, then they said, well, there's somebody you should talk to, and so there I got a hold of Ernie, and then he gave me some incredible stories, which I promptly wanted to check out with everybody else and verified that this guy was not a nutcase.
Can you do it quickly? I mean, can you give us an overview of what Ernie told you that set you on fire?
One incident was the F-106 incident at Misawa, Japan, back in 1959, where they had some specially modified 106s, specially equipped with new types of air-to-air radar, and they sent one of these things up to intercept a UFO that would normally come over. Normally the pattern would be they normally come over the base and sit there and hover. So on this particular day, they sent up one of these 106s to intercept it, and the pilot got within firing range, and he asked ground control if he had permission to fire, and ground control told him, well, we'll call the Pentagon, and let's see if we can get the okay for you to do that. So the short story is that he got the okay, and he fired his salvo of missiles at this UFO, and they all detonated, but the UFO was still there.
Yikes!
So the pilot by that time was in a full panic. And he told ground control, it's still in the air. The missiles didn't have any effect on it. And by that time, according to the story, the tractor beam came out of the UFO and latched on the 106. And the ground controllers could hear the pilot screaming and yelling as this thing was being pulled into the UFO.
My God.
And the other little incident...
let's stick with that one for just a moment. If you were to fire a salvo of missiles, whatever he had at the time, into a UFO, was it a disc typical disc shape?
Typical, you're right. Typical oval-looking shape, disc-shaped kind of object, right? And these things used to, back in the 50s, especially around Masao, I understand that they used to just sit there and come in and just sit for hours and hours and just hover above the base.
My God. That's kind of like taking a high-powered pistol and pumping 6 shots into somebody in front of you and having them smile at you.
Yeah.
You go, Sure. I mean, what, Robert, if you know, was the authorizing rationale to fire at something like this in the first place? Many of us have wondered about this. I mean, presumably something oval-shaped, defying gravity, having come light years to get here, probably wouldn't be something you want to shoot at, mostly.
Well, I don't know the mentality of the people who made that decision. I don't know how much they knew about what the Air Force knew starting from 1947 up to that period in 1959.
Right.
I don't know who the bureaucrats were in the Pentagon that said, "Yeah, go ahead and try it." Maybe they just want to see how their new weapon systems would affect these UFOs.
Remember, UFOs are not a threat to national security.
Right, we know that, right?
So there was another incident, and then you tried to confirm these, and I'll be very interested in what you did. So what is the other one?
Well, according to what he said, there's a compound on Sandia Base that back in the early 60s that was used to do chemical testing on animals. And it's right across the street from where Loveless is today. If you go down to Sandia Base, if you get on the base, on the south end of the base, there's this called the Loveless Institute, and they do testing on animals. You can hear the dogs barking in the back of the compound, so they test on dogs too. But back in '64, they were doing testing on horses and monkeys and other exotic or different types. I don't remember all the different types of animals. But Ernie and his friend Bob was in this compound, and according to what he told me, they were doing chemical testing on alien body parts, radiation testing.
Oh my God.
And those two stories, and then of course there's
what radiation testing?
Yeah, radiation to see how the body parts respond to radiation.
All right, so these were live apparent aliens or dead?
These were very dead aliens.
Very dead.
They were. One of the doctors, I think, told Ernie these bodies were on loan, or the body parts were on loan from Wright-Patterson at the time, and the doctor told Ernie the rest of what they had was up at Wright-Pat.
Holy smokes! All right, you're right. I mean, if somebody told you with a straight face these two stories, I can see how that would light a fire, get you going, try to confirm the stories. After all, if true, this is the world's biggest story, isn't it?
Oh, it's been a big story for a long time, but it seems to get buried in the wars of Iraq or something.
Well, yeah. So all right. You heard this. You set out to try and confirm the stories. What did you do?
Well, it was a succession of steps. First, I had to call a lot of people, and who knew Ernie, and verify that this guy was really who he said he was. And they said, yes, we've heard the same stories, and we know who he is, we know his background, and we don't doubt what he's saying to us that it might be true. Then I proceeded to call Bill Moore, and
of course, Bill Moore,
right? And Bill Moore took a very big interest in Ernie. And so he called Ernie, I believe, and I don't know what he talked to.
Would you do me a favor and repeat Ernie's last name again?
Kellerstrass.
Kellerstrass. Okay. What position was he in? What was Ernie? How did he know all these things?
Well, that's another story in itself. He is retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. He's worked at Athotech. His primary mission was in intelligence. He did a lot of intelligence work, but he tells me that he never had any direct access to any of this material. It's what somebody else told him, except for the two direct incidences that we talked about.
Okay, and these two, though, in 1959 and I believe 1964,
Right.
He has direct...
Were the two that he said he was directly involved in. But he said he doesn't know anything above that beyond what he was told. However, there was a Paul McGovern who knows Ernie, who's a good friend of Ernie's, who said Ernie was out at Area 51.
Is Ernie still with us?
Oh, yes. Well, he still works here in Dayton, Ohio.
In Dayton, Ohio. All right.
Right.
Do you correspond with him frequently?
I haven't talked to him in a couple years. These sources are very strange people, and they will tend to tell you a lot of things, and then they'll just sit there and pull back on you.
Uh-huh. So that would imply that you've gone to Ernie at another point and he denied it or denied ever saying it, or what?
He said he was having too many family problems and he just didn't want to, get into any more conversations about it.
Understandable, Robert. A number of people that I've interviewed over the years, including John Lear, has had a number of periods in his career when he just said, look, I'm washing my hands of this. I've had it. I'm not going to talk about this stuff anymore. It is affecting my family, my career. I just can't do it anymore. That kind of deal.
Sure. Right.
So, anyway, you have independently confirmed in these two incidences and maybe more what Ernie told you.
I'm trying to quantify that. The only thing we can confirm is that the fact that they had the 106s at the time. That's the only thing that we can confirm. We can't confirm the incident because the Air Force denies it. You can't confirm the incident on the south area of Sandia Base back in 1964 because then again that gets denied. The only things we can confirm or what sources tell us is what's the makeup of Wright-Patterson and the tunnels and the bolts.
Well, we'll get to that. On the F-106, you would think that it would be possible to confirm the loss of a pilot, whether it would be listed as an accident or some other way.
In that case, it would just be listed as an accident, lost at sea or something, and presumed dead.
Right. Okay. So you were in contact then with Bill Moore and Jamie?
Bill Moore, I met in the spring of 1986 in a motel room in Los Angeles. Was on TDY to TRW at the time there.
Right.
And he showed me a copy of, before it was ever in the public domain, of the Eisenhower briefing document, that 35-millimeter film.
Sure.
The famous one.
Oh, yes.
And he he showed it to me, and he said, do you know anything about this? And I just looked at the document, and I said, this is news to me. And he said he couldn't let me have copies of it, and so that's how everything got started. And I went back to Dayton, Ohio, and he went back to wherever he was doing, and then the phone calls, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of hours of phone calls, and then we had the meetings all the way from starting in the fall of 1986, and that's when I met Jamie at Ernie's house. Ernie Kellerstrass house, and we had Hal Putoff and John Alexander and a number of other people there, and we had a big powwow about this, and Ernie then explained everything he knew about the subject to us in the living room. And
can you relate?
That's what got all the ball rolling on everything.
Yeah, can you relate some of that? Can you remember the high points?
Well, he went into details about Area 51 and the guards disappearing in Area 51. All they could find was the vehicle, and we talked a little bit about, or mentioned the Red Book, and then we talked about the Yellow Book. The fact is that the aliens believe in one God, and that the Red Book is a compilation of all the ongoing government research since 1947.
Let me slow you down again. The Red Book, you said, and the aliens believe in one God.
Are you familiar with the Majestic website?
I am.
Okay. If you go to the Majestic website, there's something called the First Annual Report. You ever seen it?
I believe I have, yes.
Okay. Well, the Red Book is those annual reports were put out every year starting in around 1952. And so the 52, 53, 54, they took all those annual reports and put them together into one volume called the Red Book.
Okay.
So each year the Red Book gets updated with a new annual report.
Let's go to direct knowledge that you have. You were at Wright Pat. You know something about, and I've really always been curious about these underground vaults, these hangars, all these underground things that are said to be under Wright-Patterson, and what's hidden there. How much do you actually know about that, Robert?
Well, let me try to put it this way. We have enough information that if we had an interested party like Congress willing to investigate that, we could prove that those things are there in a matter of days.
How would you do that?
All we'd have to do is knock down some concrete walls.
Knock down some concrete walls and a heavily protected...
It would take civil engineering a couple of days to knock down those walls to prove that those tunnels and those vaults are there.
How do you know they're there?
Oh, because they've been seen on radar. I don't work by myself. I work with a group of people, and I have a lot of people in important places, like at Wright Pat, who have access to things, and they tell me certain things. And also, too, I've got thousands and thousands of drawings taken from Wright Pat that are official. In fact, the guy who gave them to me had a security clearance pulled.
Really?
Yes, he lost his security clearance over it. And these drawings, plus what's been seen on radar imaging, which I didn't get to see, but my friend did, who works there.
You have these drawings. You have these drawings now, Robert?
Yeah, they're on the machine here, and they're also in the book. You've got a lot of the drawings are in that book you have. I don't know if you have a copy of it.
No, I do not in front of me.
Okay. I sent one to Lisa, I believe. Lisa has a copy.
Right. It just didn't make it to me in time. That's all right. We're on radio anyway, so what we've got to try to do is describe, if somebody lost their security clearance over this, and you've got it in a book, then it's public knowledge, right? At this point. We've got enough. If we get enough, that we were given permission, we could prove the case there in a couple days. That's how confident we are. Well, you and I both know that is not going to happen. No, the Air Force is not going to allow you to bust down their walls. No. So how much is below Wright Pat? I mean, physically, how much is down there? Physically, there are about, if I'm trying to count these right, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 vaults. 5 what you call vaults? Well, anywhere from a size of 100 by 100 feet, which is 1,000 square feet, all the way up to, or I should say all the way down to some little small vault area, which is down by the what we call used to be the medical center, or the biological medical study center, which is down the hill from where the main vaults are at. And that's where I understand that's where they they used to roll these tunnels you could drive a pickup truck through. And they probably do. Yeah, they're big tunnels, and you could drive a Ford pickup truck through them. And how much do we know about what's stored in these vaults? Well, there's nothing stored there anymore. All this they move faster. They keep track of the public attitudes and public ideas and what the public might know about this stuff. And as soon as they think they're in trouble, they take all the stuff and they move it. So all this stuff was moved out of Wright Pat in 82 and 83. To where? Primarily to Los Alamos and to Area 51. Okay, well, there are others who say that there was a great deal at Area 51 and that it was moved out of there. I can't verify any of that. I can't verify those kind of stories. And Rick Doty, I talked to Rick, and I've got other sources, and I can't verify any of those stories. So your best intel at the moment would be that a lot of this is still at Area 51? Right. Yeah, they're making some big major money investments in Area 51, so I really doubt that anything's been moved. Well, you're right about that. They're expanding Area 51. All right, Robert, hold tight. Robert Collins is my guest. He says a lot of what was at Wright Pat was moved to Area 51 and elsewhere, and to the best of his knowledge, it's still there. And that would have been my bet, because indeed they're expanding Area 51. You can't get as close as you used to. I'm Art Bell. Robert Collins is my guest. He says he knows a lot about what was apparently at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, part of what still may be there, the underground areas that were associated with the storage of you-know-what. We'll get back to him in a moment. Well, all right, Robert Collins has a website, www.ufoconspiracy.com. Good domain name. And his book is Exempt from Disclosure. Robert, why exempt from disclosure?
Well, it's a typical label they put on documents they don't want to downgrade. So they'll put at the bottom either exempt from exempt. Well, actually, it'll say exempt from downgrade.
Meaning downgrade in security level.
Yeah, security level, right. Exempt from downgrade. Right. It'll say that down the lower right corner, I believe. It's been a while since I looked at some of those documents. So that so in a sense, what it's saying, it's exempt from disclosure.
Okay. All right. This person, how did it come about that you got these diagrams of what is below Wright-Pat?
Well, it goes back to the civil, what I call my civil engineering person, without mentioning names.
Right.
He and I started working together about 1993. It was over a 10-year effort on our parts. And then we took information from the sources, like Ernie provided a lot of information, and Rick Doty provided a lot of information. And we took their information plus what we got out of the drawings, and we were able to fit all that source information with what was in the drawings.
Right.
And so we could match up with what they were saying with what we found. And
was he still active duty?
We had to go through thousands and thousands, I mean literally thousands and thousands of Wright-Pat drawings.
Was he still active duty when he handed you these?
Oh, he's civil service.
Civil service, but
right.
Still employed.
Right. Yeah, he had a huge interest in it and finding out whether those bolts were really there or not. And so he did a lot of his own investigation, and plus we were working together, and he gave me a lot of those drawings, which I ran copies of them, scanned them in, and then destroyed the original copies so he wouldn't get in trouble.
But he did get in trouble. He got his clearance yanked, right?
Yeah, in 1998 he got his clearance pulled.
As a direct result of what he gave you?
Right. As soon as let me back up on that. As of 1996, he had his clearance pulled.
Okay.
It's because of when I first posted a preliminary report on the vaults at Wright-Patterson, the Air Force just went ballistic.
Were you contacted?
No, but they had my phones tapped.
How did you? All right.
Nobody has physically ever come to see me.
Okay. How do you know your phones were tapped? A good tap is not detectable.
My good friends like Rick Doty have the abilities and the equipment to test phone lines that can detect rust 2,000 miles away.
Okay. So you believe your phones were tapped, or they confirmed it for you.
Right.
And you did say you had thousands of hours of conversations on phone, right?
Right. Well, with all the people I mentioned to you before, right? We had nonstop Jamie, Bill. We had Kit Green, Hal Putoff. Of course, John Alexander was out there somewhere on the left. He was never really that involved in it. And plus the people I just talked to you, my
I know John Alexander very well.
Yeah, that's why my Wright-Pat person. And then we had not only thousands of hours of conversations, but we had these regular meetings up to about 1991, I believe.
Huh. Okay. What Air Force office does counter-intel work?
That would be Rick's old office, Air Force Office of Special Investigations, PJ. We call them the Pajama Gang affectionately. And they're the ones that run all the counterintelligence. They protect all the black programs for the Air Force. They have an office right here at Wright-Patterson. They have an office there in the Pentagon, and I think they might have an office at Kirtland, or maybe they used to, but I don't know if they still do.
Where are you actually located right now?
I'm in Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. Oh, so you're close.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
Close to Nevada.
Do you think your phones are still tapped?
As of 2003, there were still phone taps on this phone line as of 2003. So we just assumed they're phone taps on them.
Mm-hmm. All right. When they yanked his clearance, they must have, pulled him in, and he had to stand in front of somebody, and something happened, right?
Yes, but I didn't get those details. I know when I posted that preliminary Wright-Pat report back in '96, they sent him to Florida on a vacation for 2 weeks.
Uh-huh. Okay. What?
He doesn't tell me everything, but I learn enough things that you can get a good picture of what's going on.
Uh-huh. The Aeronautical Systems Center, ASC, at Wright-Pat, does what? They oversee, as you mentioned, the black programs, right?
Well, you've heard of Aurora, haven't you?
Of course.
Well, they manage the Aurora program out at Area 51.
Okay.
They managed the F-117 and the B-2 when it was hush-hush and in a black program.
All those now are pretty well known. Right. One can only imagine, or perhaps you can tell us, Robert, what came after Aurora, what came after the B-2. In other words, those were the secret projects being managed. What are they managing now?
I don't know if they have anything after the B-2. I don't know if they have anything after the 117. But we suspect, but we can't really prove at this point that they manage UFO programs.
You know anything about black triangles?
Yes. No, yeah. No. Some people say they're ours, but I don't believe that.
Okay. Where exactly at Los Alamos are the UFO artifacts?
Well, TA-49 was the original facility. That was called the Dulce Complex in 1950. I think it was in 1954 they converted an underground nuclear storage facility into what is now become the Dulce Complex.
Right.
And then there's a few other locations, but we don't know a whole lot about them. And one of them is in TA. I can't remember that one. Was TA 40? But yeah, it was TA 40. TA 40 is now the alternate entryway into TA 49. Because in TA 49 they closed up that entryway back in around 2001 because of all the security leaks.
What was there that you know of?
You mean in TA 49?
Yes.
Well, I have never been in that facility, but Rick has, and I understand.
What does Rick say?
Well, it's pretty huge. And they always use front organizations to hide what they're really trying to do in some places, and that's normally designated as a munitions testing area. But then in a certain building you'd walk into, and you'd go to a certain elevator, and this elevator was behind a vault door, and they'd have to open the vault door up before you could go in the elevator. And this elevator would go down around 5 stories or so, and then it would open up on the bottom. And he said the underground facility there, which we call the Dulce Complex, was pretty extensive.
And what did he see?
He said he just went into a room and escorted into a room and sat down in the back with a friend, and a lieutenant colonel or a Fulbright colonel walked up to him and had him sign a special security clearance for the EB-2 interview.
For the EB-2 interview?
Right, which is in the book.
Extraterrestrial biological entity, right?
Right.
Continue.
So as it's described in the book.
Describe it here.
It's it was. He said that, I'm trying to remember all the details of that. 4'3" alien walked in a tight-fitting jumpsuit, and there were 3 civilians there at the front table. I think there was a colonel. And 2 civilians out there sitting right there at the interview table, and he wasn't sure whether this EBE was either talking verbally or telepathically. He couldn't tell where the sound was coming from, but he could hear it, but he couldn't see the mouth of the EBE moving.
Okay, you believe him?
Yeah, I do, because everything else he's told me, it checks out. Right, Pat? Sure checked out.
Well, when you say right, Pat, checked out, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean that the documents that you got that got this guy's clearance pulled checked out, or you know more?
The documents show you where walls were put up, where stairwells were at, where elevators were at, where tunnel entries were at, where surveillance cameras were at, and then there's nothing there.
I mean, all of this could be true, Robert, but it could be for a national security purpose that either did or didn't have anything to do with ETs or ET artifacts or whatever.
Well, they certainly pulled this guy's clearance for some reason, I guess.
Well, anytime you disclose something that's national security, trust me, your security clearance is going to vaporize.
Well, we must have hit something, but
I'm sure you did.
It certainly was pretty extensive, and the way this thing was blocked, and these entryways were blocked and concreted up, and walls were put up, and that the people there would never know there was anything there. People today there work at Right Pat have no idea where any of this stuff would be.
Well, apparently this stuff is no longer there. Are you fairly sure of that it's all been cleared out?
You can never be 100% certain of anything, but we're pretty certain that all the hardware and was moved out. There might be some documentation which still is kept at NASIC, which used to be FTD, but we don't know that. We can't prove those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Do you have first-hand knowledge of any of the things that we've talked about so far tonight? Because most of what you've told me has been, so-and-so told me, so-and-so told me.
Oh, well, yeah, I've seen UFOs a number of times.
Okay. But, I mean, with respect to what you've told us about Dulcie, about Right Pat, and we sort of briefly touched on Area 51, we'll talk about S4.
Well, but I'm not so much of a person who goes out who has seen things. What I do is collect information and put it together. We call it intelligence in the Air Force.
Sure.
And so I take all the source information plus the things I learn on my own and put it together, try to check it, which we've been able to do with other sources, with other facilities, and with other people, and put it together and put out a report.
And so the conclusions you've come to are that they had these underground facilities that you've documented. You've got the drawings of them at Right Pat. They had, you believe, artifacts there, possibly bodies there. They were moved, you believe, to Dulce or Area 51. Is that correct?
That's correct, as far as we know.
How much do you know now? Robert, I'm right out here. You may be near Right Pat, but I'm just around the corner from Area 51, just over the mountain from me here. And I'd be very interested in how much you know about Area 51, how compartmentalized the whole thing is.
All I know about Area 51 is what the sources report, what's in the book, what Kit Green has told me. Kit Green said he was out there, but he never saw any UFOs. Gene Lakes was the chief of security there up to 1996, and he knows Kit Green. But Kit didn't have the access to go to the places that this stuff was kept. And even if you work at Area 51, you're extremely compartmentalized. They wear color-coded badges, and they're separated by cantonment areas. So unless you have the access, you won't see anything that's out of the unusual.
Mm-hmm. Then how do you know anything out of the unusual is there?
Other than what's on the people videotaped, these objects around Area 51, or what the sources have said, that's as much as I know.
And S4?
And S4 is the same way. The sources have said they've been there, described it, and said this is what's there, and said some of what Lazar's saying is true.
Have you spoken to Bob Lazar?
No, but friends of mine have. I haven't spoken to him. But Rick Doty's, the drawings in the book of the S4 facility, which are in the book, Rick Doty says that's exactly the way it's laid out.
Mm-hmm. All right. You claim to know, apparently, from one of the questions here, how the anti-gravity systems work on reverse-engineered UFOs, which you believe, I guess, were flying, right?
Again, back to what the sources say, they've been flying these since the early '60s, and according to what the sources say, they've crashed a lot in the Gulf of Mexico. The Cash Landrum case was an example of that, where in that case that object over Texas got in trouble and is surrounded by helicopters, and of course Betty and
Barney Hill.
Yeah, got severely burned by the radiation from that thing. That was supposedly one of our reverse-engineered our objects or craft.
Okay, so you actually know, though, how the anti-gravity systems work?
Well, this goes back to the latest in what's going on in the world of physics, and then what the sources are telling me, and I compare what the sources are telling me with what's going on in physics. And right now, they're saying that superconducting capacitors are superconducting currents.
Right.
And the superconducting currents are used for deep space, and superconducting capacitor configurations are used for the atmospheres of planets.
Okay. To maneuver in atmosphere. And
they have to reconfigure the anti-gravity field to maneuver in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Even though the alien energy device, ED, whatever that is way beyond our ability to understand, can you explain its basic operation?
Supposedly, it's a device of what contains what? So around 6,366 small black circular objects. Well, they want 0.003 centimeters that spin counterclockwise within a circular sphere. And this sphere supposedly has liquid in it. And when they put a demand of electricity on this device, they get an output. And this liquid, they decided this liquid that collects around these little circular black devices is an isotope of hydrogen called H5. And this H5 it acts as a catalyst to extract energy out of the vacuum. I'm doing a lot of work at Los Alamos, from what I understand, to try to get produce H5 and then find ways to stabilize it. Because it's very unstable. And they do have some patented devices. Some of those are in the book, which I'm not sure how much success they've had with them.
All right. Robert, hold it right there. We're at the top of the hour. We've got to take a break. I wonder if H5 has anything to do with element 115 or if they're related. I'm Art Bell. We'll be right back. Robert Collins is my guest. The advertisement for this show was a lot of information about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, then Area 51, S4, Dulce, and so forth, Los Alamos. We'll continue with that, and we were on the subject of H5, and I was wondering if it had any relationship to 115, also considered to be somewhat unstable. Back to Robert Collins in a moment. All right, Robert, let's finish up with H5. I started thinking H5, element 115. I wonder if there's some relationship.
Not that I could find. As far as the 115, all the information or sources I've ever talked to never confirmed that kind of story. You know, the place I've heard that from is Bob Lazar and in some science journals, and that's about it.
Well, John Lear as well.
They discovered or something. They discovered 115, but it doesn't fit in with anything that I've learned or know in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, H5.
H5, yeah, is again H5. It was created, but it's extremely unstable, and it's being used, or they're trying to use it as a catalyst, which will extract energy out of the vacuum, which is something that Hal Puthoff has been looking for a long time, and it's. Again, Los Alamos is trying to find ways to stabilize it, from what I understand, and they've got a couple patented devices to do that. Again, that's covered in the book, and that's about as much as I know about it. You're dealing with the frontiers of physics and this kind of stuff, just like you're dealing with superconductors and rotating superconductors and anti-gravity and configuring propulsion systems, and even the people at Los Alamos are having a heck of a time with the alien craft, according to what they're telling me.
Can you tell us who they would be?
If well, they don't give me their proper names. They give me first names, which you find out later on are not real, and you get sent information. But they're not going to ever tell you who they are. They could,
so there's no way for you to really confirm this stuff.
No, of course not. They could. It's like a rock and a hard place. They could get in very serious trouble if they ever got caught doing it.
Uh-huh. Is there anything that we should be covering? Really big revelations that we should cover that we haven't covered in the program so far.
Other than the color, we covered the color-coded badging and the compartmentalization at Area 51, cantonments. There's Dulles, Angleton, and Helms and the Doty family, and Angleton and his job in CIA as Deputy Director of Counterintelligence, and his association with Dulles and Helms, and I think always kind of a knock on the door where he could just walk in at any time and advise these two directors of anything in the intelligence world, anything that was going on. And he had an enormous power until he got fired by Kobe in 1974.
Mm-hmm. Do you know the subject material of any of those advisories?
Again, we know that Angleton kept track of a great deal of number of UFO reports, and again, that's covered in the book. And that he fed these reports to the director, and I know from other sources that I've talked to, who in fact is Rick's father, Charles Doty, knew Angleton, another source. Edmondson, last name Edmondson, knew Angleton. But Angleton was in charge of protecting MJ-12 as far as the CIA was concerned. Because before MJ-12 got moved, and it was at CIA before it got moved, Angleton was responsible for doing that. And eventually I think it was back in 1986, they moved the responsibility for MJ-12 to NSA.
Maybe you have an answer.
I believe it's in a section called Group C at NSA.
Okay, maybe you have an answer for this, Robert. But if we had all of this reverse-engineered technology, some of it no doubt applicable to weaponry, we'd be using it to protect our young men and women in Iraq. And if we're not, why not?
what the sources or the scientists at Los Alamos tell me, and they tell me indirectly, of course, because to protect themselves, is that the materials, they're having a real tough time with the materials on the craft because the materials are not we can't make any material on this planet that would match anything on these craft. And the second problem is they can't properly configure the propulsion system so that the craft are stable. In other words, the ones that we make, we have ones that do fly. They call them ARVs. They repeatedly have stability problems with them, and they crash. Been having those problems for over roughly since 1956 up to the present, where everything they've tried didn't succeed. And what I was told is that we had to go back to the drawing board and learn the alien physics, and that's what the sources are telling me.
Is there anything about the alien physics that can be differentiated and explained from what we understand as our world's physics?
Well, it's just like looking at that crystal rectangle, and when I briefly described there with the crystal rectangle, our scientists don't understand that. That's covered in the documents in the book. And so what they do with these kind of things is they go as far with them as they can. They test them. This crystal rectangle was flown on shuttle missions and brought to the space station before the Columbia disaster. And we don't know if the Columbia had one of these crystal rectangles because there's more than one. There's a couple of them. And they use them to, obviously from the testing they've done, they give tremendous power output, and there's no power limit as to what, as far as the demand is concerned.
Crystal rectangles, I didn't know a thing about them. So
that's your alien energy device.
Okay, that is the energy device.
The code name on it's called the crystal rectangle.
Mm-hmm. And where does this information come from?
This comes out of there's DIA documents which are in the book there. That information is right out of those documents, plus the information I've gotten from my sources over the years, long before I ever got those documents.
Defense Intelligence Agency, right?
Right.
And you're certain of the authenticity of the documents?
Well, here I'm not certain of anything. I don't know if the documents are really authentic. But the FBI did make a visit to Kit Green about me.
All right. Gig Green, who's that?
He's up at Wayne State University. He's he's covered in the book. He's a good friend of Hal Puthoff's. And
the FBI went to him about you?
Right. He tells me that they wanted the FBI, that the FBI wanted him to spy on me. So he wasn't willing to do that, so he told me about it.
And what exactly did they want him
because of these documents that are in the book? And Rick Doty's warned me a couple of times about the FBI coming to visit me, and they have never come, even though I've doors open and they can come anytime.
Uh-huh. Were you the only author of this book, or did you have a co-author, Robert?
Oh, they're contributors. Rick Doty was willing to be a contributor, and Timothy Cooper is a contributor as well.
Timothy Cooper.
Right, he's out Big Bear there in California, and he's the son of his father. His father was in the Air Force, and Timothy was in the Marines for about 4 years, and he got out, and he just does odd jobs there at Big Bear. I think he might have. I'm not too sure of this. His mother has a disability, I believe, or she's getting old or something. I haven't talked to Tim in 3 or 4 months, so I really don't know all the details of what he's doing right now.
When did your book come out?
The first edition came out in April 2005, and the second edition came out in May of 2006.
I see. And how's it been greeted?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. There's been a lot of hostility, resentment and name calling, and then a lot of people have just thought it was really great, and they loved it.
Okay. Well, I can't comment on the book, but most of what you've had to say, by your own admission, is in fact, none of it really is first-hand information, but rather collected information from other sources.
Right. It's all most of it is collected information from other sources, and except for the stuff that was done at RIPAT.
In other words, the documents you were handed.
The documents were.
Is that what you're referring to?
The drawings? No,
yes.
The drawings in the book are official drawings from RIPAT.
Okay.
They are official Air Force drawings.
All right, and you're really certain of that?
Yeah, because I have the drawings here with the labels on, with the Air Force labels on them.
But you did destroy the originals.
I did destroy the originals, right.
Mm-hmm. Well, if all this is true, it is surprising that you have not yet received a visit by the FBI or worse.
Well, there's something here that if you pay attention to something that you know might be real, if they were to pay attention to me, that would just draw the attention of everybody else.
Well, there's some truth in that. All right, well, listen, Robert, I want to thank you for being on the program. I'd like to invite people to take a look at your book, Exempt from Disclosure, or your website, UFOconspiracy.com, right?
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the program, and you have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Art.
Take care, Robert. Okay. That is Robert Collins, and you can take that as you will, folks. Most of the information, I was hoping that it was going to be first person, I saw, I handled, I was part of, that kind of thing. But most of it was second or third hand information, with the exception, as he pointed out, of the documents, which describe the underground areas, apparently, below Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and certainly that has worth. What I'm going to do is open the phone lines, and we're going to go to open lines. We've pretty well exhausted the material that Robert had, in my opinion. So anybody with any topic at all is welcome. Let's do open lines. West of the Rockies, here it comes. 800-618-8255. That's 800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 800-825-5033. First-time callers, area code 818-501-4721. 818-501-4721. And the wildcard line, many of those, area code 818-501-4109. If you're outside the country, a free portal for you at 800-893-0903. Contact your overseas operator and tell her you want to call the toll-free number, 800-893-0903. West of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. I just had a few comments. He was talking about the H5.
Yes.
Now, when you say H5, that's a compound, a molecule. But he said it was an isotope, so it would be more accurate to describe it as 5H.
Okay.
Meaning it has five neutrons. And also, I wanted to I wanted to suggest that the next time you have somebody on that's talking about global warming, that they actually have numbers and stuff, because the expert you had on yesterday, when you read that email about when you read the email that was quoting all the numbers, he didn't say anything about the numbers or any numbers to contradict those numbers.
I didn't ask him. I didn't go that far down, looking for a response to the email. I think he took on the 2 or 3 first major points in the email. There was a lot to it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm on the fence on the issue. So if if I can hear like an argument, discounting all these numbers and stuff like that, and also the expert you had on a few weeks ago said that the artificial carbon dioxide in the air makes up a fourth of the total carbon dioxide, and expert from yesterday said half. So it's just kind of confusing.
Yeah, it's something that I think is incredibly important and potentially will affect our lives, even our lives. It could come that soon. I thought the statement that I read to you earlier this evening was pretty important stuff. And if we get that kind of sea level rise, I think there's no question about the fact that places like old Manhattan, for example, are going to be in a very, very great deal of trouble. And this makes it a gigantic topic. Now, I haven't made any absolute decisions on it. The people who are pro-global warming think that it's settled science. That's what they're calling it now, that there's really no point in debating the issue anymore. It's happening, they say. Dr. Hansen, who's head of NASA's Goddard Institute, is saying, essentially, it's going to happen, and we better get our heads out from wherever they are right now and begin doing something about it, or we're going to be wading in the water pretty soon. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you saw the Science Channel presentation where after 2001, when they grounded the airplanes for 3 days, there were some scientists in California where they were doing a phenomenon called, I forgot what it's called, but the way it is now, the daytime temperatures are cooler and the nighttime temperatures are warmer.
Well, they did ground airplanes after 9/11. You're correct about that. And it would have been an interesting time to observe the difference that that was made, if any, in the amount of heat reaching the Earth. Because certainly these contrails, forget chemtrails, contrails do spread out and occasionally cause hazy days, and that's got to cause less sunlight to reach the Earth.
Correct. Well, what the scientists found out was that after the 3 days that the temperatures were reversing to the way they are supposed to be. In other words, it was warmer.
Well, I would think warmer, sir. If more sunlight was reaching Earth, which would be the presumed thing that would occur if contrails were not in the sky, then you would think it would get warmer.
Well, I think they were testing like the smog and the jet fuel, I guess, from all the, like there's about 4,000 jets in the air at one time.
Oh, you bet. 4,000 or 5,000, yes.
Yeah. So, did you see that special?
No, I did not.
It was on the Science Channel a couple of years ago. I don't know, maybe they'll replay it sometime.
Maybe they will. All right, thank you very much. Well, again, you would think, wouldn't you, that there would be more sunlight reaching the Earth, therefore higher temperatures, presumably, measurably, on the Earth. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, how are you? I'm Christina from Florida.
Welcome.
Actually, I saw a flying saucer when I was young. I never told anybody because it was hovering above me when I woke up.
Right.
And I ran through the house, and it followed me on the outside of the house in a hovering position. And then when I got to the porch, I looked out there. I screamed. And it was still there. It was kind of stopped, and it kind of like went up and went at an angle and left because it didn't want me to see it. But I can identify what it looks like.
Well, millions of people now have had sightings, similar sightings, and there's something to it. There's got to be something to it. Look, we go through a lot of guests here on the subject, but really, folks, I've had my own sightings, a couple of them. There's no question about it. These things are in our skies. What they are? Well, there's got to be something to it. Let me leave it at that. There's obviously something to it. It's worth covering, and so cover it we do. And I have high hopes that before it's all over, we'll actually get to the bottom of it. We'll come up with some hard, smoking gun-type proof that we are being visited from elsewhere. We are that interesting, don't you think? I'm Art Bell. Here I am, and it's your opportunity. We're an unscreened, open line, anything goes, calls. Remember, folks, when I tell you you're on the air, that has meaning. Reach over right away and turn your radio off, because we've got a delay system, and it'll confuse you terribly. It'll make you actually sound confused on the air. Even I can't handle it. So turn that radio off right away and try to, make your subject something that will be of interest to all. That in mind, all of you are coming up next. Well, all right, here we go, everybody. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hey, Art. Good to hear you. Glad to have you back in town. Hey, this is Bill from Las Vegas.
Hey, Bill.
And I don't know if it's going to interest your listeners. I hope it does. But talking about this Dulce complex down there in New Mexico.
Yes, sir.
I've heard some information about that, about the experimentation that supposedly goes on down there.
What have you heard?
I had heard that they were doing some experimentation and mutation of humans.
Oh, God, I'm so afraid that could be true.
The one story that really stuck out in my mind was of the one gentleman that had gone down into the lower levels. They're saying there's, 7 levels below ground?
Yes, sir.
He had said something that was really disturbing to me about a half-human, half-bat type creature that he'd seen down there. Now, this really didn't sink in well with me. It really hit me bad when about 3 months before Halloween of last year, a friend of mine and me were outside of our complex, out at the picnic benches. We just had a barbecue, and there's an open field near our complex. Well, something took off from that field.
Really?
And I've seen a lot of large animals, but I'd never seen anything like this before.
This scares the hell out of me. It really does. I know we've got
about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, we've got the technology to do this, sir. We can tamper with our own genetics, and you just know in places like that, they're doing these kinds of experiments, and it's as black as it can get, but we're doing it. I just know we are.
If something like that does exist, and it's out here flying about, I mean, we really got a problem.
Sounds like the Philippine Aswang, half human, half something like a bat.
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like this. And then following that experience, a bunch of other people around the neighborhood here had mentioned that they'd seen something large like that flying around.
Really?
And I couldn't compare it to anything I'd seen before. It has like a 17-foot wingspan. The thing is over like 6 or 7 feet tall. It's got a humanoid-type body. I saw that movie Jeepers Creepers, and it just sent a chill up my spine. It looks so much like that.
I hope to hell we're not doing it.
When I saw it, it was about 30 feet above the tree line, so I could see that it had leathery-type wings that were bat-type wings, and the thing was just gliding along. I mean, it was really moving.
So it's not just you,
who do I
others.
call? I mean, can I tell anybody about this?
Me. You're telling me, and you're telling me that others have seen it as well.
Right. And this is around the lakes area up in Las Vegas.
That's too close to home for me. The Pahrump Valley is used as an overflight area for a lot of things. Last week we had all kinds of Air Force jets flying low over the valley, and they said, yes, it's true they were because, well, normally they kind of skirt the mountains, but they said we need a sort of a semi-urban area to test over. So it was the Pahrump Valley.
Oh, great.
And hearing, I'll keep my eye out, believe me, but I don't want to see anything like you're talking about.
Yeah, neither do I. And it made me nervous for my neighbors, for any young children in the area, because this thing's larger than a California condor. That's the only thing I could, compare the size to.
Understood.
But it does not look like a bird.
All right. Thank you and not a plane.
Negative.
Thank you very much. Can you imagine that, folks? I'm afraid that I can. We have the ability to tamper with the human genome. We may not exactly claim we can yet, but, well, we can. And so I think it's being done. And whether something like that man just described exists or not, I do believe in underground areas, in black budget facilities somewhere or another, we're doing it. And that scares me. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Is this Art?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, you were talking the other night about getting out of Iraq, and I was listening on the recorded version, so I couldn't call in. Can I give you an idea for that tonight?
You sure may.
Yeah. it seems to me that the way the French used to run things in Africa with the French Foreign Legion,
yes,
they would hire these angry young men from all over the world that love to fight, and they would bring them in there on a mercenary basis, and they would have a wonderful reputation as soldiers. And instead of sending our militia and our even our volunteer army over there, it's the money we've spent on this operation, if we would set up a foreign legion and invite these guys from all over the world that don't have jobs to come in and be trained to fight as a police force.
We do have mercenaries there now.
We'll have more of them. And then divide the country into the 3 original places that used to be with the tribes that like each other, the Kurds and the Shiites and before the British tried to make them one, you know?
Yeah.
The Sunnis, the Shiites, and the Kurds, a 3-country deal, have these foreign who aren't Americans, and preferably Arabs, the Arabs that can't find work, and the Lebanese and all those guys, have them keeping order, and until this government, it could be a police force for this government, until they can get their act together, and we supervise them, or the UN supervise them if we could get them to.
If our objective was to get out, maybe your idea would be workable. But I don't think our objective is to get out, hon. I think our objective is to establish military bases and keep them in Iraq. We want a permanent presence in the Middle East, and that's it.
Well, that could might be worked as a separate deal with their so-called government, but they need to have order maintained before they can have any kind of life for their people.
That's for sure.
And it seemed like that kind of a strong police force might do it, because there'd be less resentment, especially if they hired Arabs, than there is for us being in there, which just irritates them.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thank you very much. It's a good thought, but I think that our objective, in fact, that's a question worth asking. What do you think our objective is now with Iraq? Huh? What do you think our long-term objective is with Iraq? I believe it's to have military bases there, to have a geopolitical presence in the Middle East, to have bases from which we can launch attacks if we have to against Iran or Syria. And I believe that's the big picture. Is oil part of it? Sure. Are we close to stabilizing our objective? Not at the moment. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Going once.
Okay.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Is this Art?
Yes, it is.
How are you?
I'm quite well, sir.
Well, let me tell you something. You rock, buddy. You handled that guest, I think, quite fairly, and pretty much, he said a little bit too much, you know.
Well, I try to be fair, sir, to all my callers, all my guests, and if they have a lot to offer, they're here, kind of like phone callers. And
right.
if not, then they're not.
That's right. Let me ask you if you have any update on what George had brought up a few nights ago about the president and him having some kind of absolute power?
I don't have any updates on it. There have been a number of things running around the internet on the president giving himself more power. That's what you're referring to?
Right.
No, I can't give you any updates on it.
Okay.
I've read the internet stuff. I don't know what's true and what's not.
Right. I just wonder if he might be able to use some of that and with some of this black ops type testing, and you never know what the combinations could bring. It's pretty wild. Life's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It is, sir. Thank you very much for the call. Despite what a lot of you I know think, I'm not an anti-Bush person at all. I kind of like President Bush in most ways. I think he's done a pretty good job, and I think a lot of people have not given him the credit where he is due credit. And one of those areas is keeping America relatively safe. Since 9/11, not a hell of a lot's happened. And I said this earlier in the program, I'm going to say it again. And that is, not so much as a human hair, for the most part, inside the U.S. has been hurt since 9/11. The agencies charged, Homeland Security and others, with keeping us safe, apparently have done so, because 9/11 proved there are a lot of people who want us dead. They want us hurt. In fact, they don't want us on the planet. So somebody's been doing a pretty good job, and my sense is, and I've had some reports that I consider credible, that a number of things have very nearly happened, but have been stopped. And the agencies don't get credit for that. On the wildcard line, or one of them, you're on the air. Hello.
How you doing, Art?
I'm very well, sir.
This is Mark from Cleveland area.
Yes.
I was wondering if you received an email that I sent to you about a film that I saw on WKYC out of Cleveland that was concerning water into fuel.
No, I don't think so. The only water as fuel experiment I know that's got some credibility is a fellow, believe it or not, in the Philippines who is said to be running a vehicle on water. Now, I can't confirm that, but I have reason to believe it is so.
Well, apparently this guy is out of Akron, and he was looking for a cure for cancer. Oh. He's a cancer survivor himself. And he was using regular radio waves. He was a electrical engineer, and he was using regular radio waves introduced to water, and then all he did was add salt to it, and there's an actual video if you go to WKYC.com.
Well, let's say, all right, let's think about this. Salt would make the water more conductive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, RF energy would begin to act on that conductive water. It would heat it. What it would do to what it would do beyond that, I have no idea, but it would seem an indirect and inefficient way of producing energy. What did he say occurred?
Well, you actually can see the video on the thing, and he adds a little bit of salt to this water,
right?
And it turns, and then a flame starts, and they actually power a little steam engine off of that flame. And apparently this guy made this machine out of pots and pans out of his wife's cupboard, plus other stuff.
Okay, well, it makes sense. Thank you for the call, and I'll look into it. You're not the first person to mention that. Radio frequency energy would definitely transfer to water with salt in it. Now, it's hard to imagine a flame, but whatever energy would be produced by that heated water, unless there was some reaction, some sort of fusion-type reaction that was initiated, which one can imagine, it would seem very inefficient because whatever heat came out of that water, even with flame, unless it was an ongoing fusion-type reaction, would be very inefficient. You'd have to use large amounts of RF, which would take a large amount of energy to heat that water. But maybe there was a fusion-type reaction going on beyond that. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, my name's Bethany. I'm a first-time caller.
Great.
And I have a question for you.
Okay.
Earlier in the week, George had a guest on that talked about reincarnation and just past life regression and things like that. And my question was how that might fit in with time travel, to where if you moved forward or backward into time, would it be possible to meet a previous person, a previous life, or... So it's just kind of one of those things that I thought about that just kind of makes you go,
Well, I tend to be a believer in reincarnation. Mm-hmm. I think it may well be so. It may be the way the cosmos operates. Souls reincarnate. How that would then, that's quite a stretch going to time travel, and whether you could meet, one of your previous incarnations, there would be the paradox problem, I'm sure.
Right.
Right? So you might suddenly wink out of existence along with a lot of other people and things. That would not be good.
Right.
You'd have time quakes.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. I do kind of lean toward reincarnation. How about the rest of you? When you consider the order of things and how things work, does reincarnation seem like, well, I guess if you believe in the soul, then reincarnation is reasonable. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello. Hello. Going once, going twice, gone. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. You're a dial tone. Let's go to the first-time caller line. Hi. Hello. Going once. Going twice, gone. For Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hey, Art. Been a lot of talk here lately about the global warming and that. I know on your program last night you were, you've made several times a lot of points about, it shouldn't be a political thing. It just is. Everything
I know, sir. I know it is, but it shouldn't be.
I know. I agree, but, it just, the right wing in this country is so strong that, everything to them is based on economics, and they see, anything that you're going to do that might prohibit, or cause any changes in manufacturing or prohibit anything at all, they have no interest in it.
I know.
Of course, the left wing, considered liberals, are considered to go too far on things, and maybe they do. So there's no common ground.
Well, look, economically, for the most part, I agree with conservative economic policy because I just love what this country is all about. I really do, and I love the free markets that we have, or as free as they are. I love all that, but look, science is science, and we're a great country. It seems to me that we ought to be able to recognize if it's real, the science is real, and then begin to put our heads together and come up with technologies that won't put us back to the Stone Age, but will still do something that won't ruin this planet.
Well, that's the way I feel about it. And it seems to me there's a lot of science out there, but nobody can get together on it, Just something quick on Iraq, if I may.
You may.
Talking about different ways to handle things, I think probably, and somebody touched on it earlier, and I feel strongly that the best way to do it is the way the administration was told they should have done it to start with, and they did not secure their borders properly, and let a lot of these people in. A lot of terrorists from other countries come in, and I think they got to do a better job securing the borders there. But the bottom line is, I think, you asked about what's our objective there, and I think our objective is to stay there. And I think at this point, we need basically a couple camps with about a 20,000 troop in each camp, special forces with a lot of equipment, basically strike forces, and otherwise get out of there and let these people take care of themselves, because their history is they just cannot have peace.
Well, if our objective, though, if our objective is to have bases there, then we're going to stay.
Yeah. But I say, get out almost like a Guantanamo, where we're there in our own corner, minding our own business, keeping an eye on things, and we can do strike forces from them camps if we need to.
Well, now you may be on to something. All right, thank you very much. Yes, maybe like Guantanamo. You establish a real green zone, a really safe green zone. You establish the bases you want, and you say, look, if it's chaos that you want beyond that, well, then go ahead and have it. Last night I rewatched The Lord of War. God, what a great movie. I'm Art Bell. You don't hear a lot of unscreened open lines anymore, anywhere, period. But they are here. So if you've got something you want to say, there's nobody between you and me. So let's get it on. Coming up next. Well, all right, how cool is this? From WKYC.com. If you want to look it up yourself. Retired TV station owner and broadcast engineer John Casillas wasn't looking for an answer to the energy crisis. He was looking for a cure for cancer. 4 years ago, inspiration struck in the middle of the night. He decided to try using radio waves to kill the cancer cells. His wife, Marianne, heard the noise, found her husband inventing a radio frequency generator with her pie pans. I got up immediately and thought he had lost it. Here are the basics of John's idea. Radio waves will heat certain metals. True. Tiny bits of certain metal are injected into a cancer patient. Those nanoparticles are attracted to the abnormalities of the cancer cells and ignore the healthy ones. The patient is then exposed to radio waves, and only the bad cells heat up and die. But John also came across another extraordinary breakthrough. His machine could actually make salt water burn. John Cazares discovered that his radio frequency generator could release the oxygen and hydrogen from salt water and create an incredibly intense flame. Just like that. If it was in a car cylinder, you could see the amount of fire that would be in the cylinder. The APV Company laboratory in Akron checked out his amazing invention. They were amazed. This could be a steam engine, a steam turbine. This could be a car engine if you wanted it to be. Imagine the possibilities. Salt water as the ultimate clean fuel, a happy byproduct of one man searching for a cure for cancer. That's the story. There is an associated video. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask if you knew about the Jeff Guckert thing with Jeff Gannon and Johnny Gosch.
No.
That was Jeff Gannon was a reporter, apparently for a non-existent newspaper that was given White House press room credentials, and he was actually seen and photographed hugging our President George Bush a number of times, and it was later found out he worked for a male escort service, but it was supposed or theorized, I guess, that he was actually a missing child from the 1980s that was abducted by a group called the, I believe it was...
Either way, sir, I would think that the White House security people would be totally unhinged if somebody actually got credentials to the White House and got close enough to hug the president. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hey, Mr. Bell, how you doing?
I'm all right, sir.
Mr. Bell, this is good old President George Bush. How you doing?
I'm all right, but I know President Bush's voice, and that would not be you.
You sure?
I'm sure.
I got a little bit of cold here. I'm sorry. Sorry, a little bit. Want to tell your listeners all the rumors are going around the internet. Not true.
Not true.
Not true at
So
all.
you have not appropriated more power for yourself, Mr. President.
No, I'm not that way. No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to tell you, good show. Congratulations on kid, though.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. Mr. President. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Oh,
hello there.
okay.
Yes,
Hello?
it's you.
Oh, that was not a surprise. You caught me off guard. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I just kind of, I guess, want to lighten the air. We all talk about politics and UFOs too much.
Okay.
I want to. I've got two jokes, and the first one, let me see. There's a grandmother walking along a beach with her beloved little grandson, and suddenly a giant wave comes out. There's a clap of lightning and thunder, and a wave comes out and takes her grandson off to sea. So she falls to her feet and looks to the sky, and she says, "Oh, Lord, I know I bother you for so many stupid things, but please, please, just bring my grandson back. I'll never ask you for another thing." So there's another lightning and thunder, another giant wave, and the grandson is back at her feet. So she looks at him, and she looks to the sky, and she says, "He was wearing a hat. Where's his hat?"
Okay.
Well.
That was it?
Well,
that was a punchline? Where's his hat?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll stay with your first joke and not attempt the second. We don't do jokes here so much. But I'm not getting it. How about you? Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
This is Art.
Yes, this is Art.
Oh, we're on a delay.
Well, yes. That's why I say turn your radio off right away.
Well, I was trusting somebody else would, but now they did.
I see.
So we had a question yesterday about reverse engineering.
We did?
At least it was on yesterday's show.
Oh, I did yesterday's show, and it was about global warming.
Well, there was a question by a caller on reverse engineering.
I see.
Yes. And there's been this very old question about the Great Pyramid and why scientists have never been able to discover how those ancient builders definitively built the Great Pyramid, which it's about the hugest structure that you could see, and it's right there, and it was built. So it seems to me that it's possible that they know how the Great Pyramid was built, but they don't want us to know because it may involve free energy.
Well, it may. The best theory I've heard for how the Great Pyramid was constructed is that the top areas were built. I've been to the Great Pyramids. I've been to all the pyramids, every single one of them. And there is a possibility that the lower sections were the large blocks, which, you can see as you go there. And the top sections were actually poured. Think about it. Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Turn your radio off, please.
Uh-huh.
Turn your radio off.
Radio off.
Right.
Okay. My name is Rachel. I'm calling from Canada.
Hi, Rachel.
My husband and I, we just live north of Toronto. And about a year ago, we were out on our back deck. And it was a starry, starry night. And, we're stargazing and looking up. And usually both of us, when we look at the stars, we notice a star and we'll notice a partner star. Do you ever look up at the stars and you see two stars kind of together?
Yes.
So we look up and we see, all these different sets of stars, and then we notice two stars moving perfectly together.
That they should not be doing.
And the stars, the space in between these two stars, we noticed as these stars moved, you couldn't see the stars behind the space. And if this was a ship, it would have been like miles.
Well, as it moved, could you see stars disappearing as whatever it was?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, then maybe it was something.
So we let it. We didn't know what to think of it, so we didn't think too much on it. About 10 minutes later, we saw the exact same thing. And in this area that we live, sometimes I'll sit on my front deck, and I look into the east, and I see orbs flying in the air.
Usually orbs are only photographed, not seen with the naked eye.
Mm-hmm. It's strange. You see one, and then two might pop up, and then you see another, and three might pop up.
I kind of, thank you. I've not made up my mind about orbs, whether they're a photographic anomaly or whether there's something actually to it. There have been a few times that it's crossed my mind that these orbs actually could be souls. And I know that's pretty far out, but it's a reasonable guess. And then, of course, a lot of it's actually photographic anomaly as well, using flash. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yes, sir. This is John from Buffalo, New York.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can barely hear you. You're going to have to speak
is it
up.
a little better?
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's anything that you could do, since supposedly we have 5 years left. A lot of people are not aware of what's really going on.
We have 5 years left?
Well, supposedly that 2012 is going to end. A lot of people are panicking, and
I'm not one of them.
It's good. A lot of people, it just seems it's like changed in the last few years. People are off their gourd a little bit, not acting their normal selves. Being in a position you're in, is there anything that you could do?
Is there anything I can do?
Yeah.
Not a thing.
In the position you are, to spread the word, and maybe give somebody a little bit of faith.
I guess you have to build your own faith. I do have faith that the world will go on. Otherwise, why have a child? No, I don't think the world is going to end. I think that we're in the middle of a change, that clearly our climate is changing, but I think the world is going to go on. I don't think that at the Mayan calendar end, all will suddenly cease. I don't know why the Mayans decided to stop at 2012, but it doesn't frighten me. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Going once.
Yes, Art.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure to speak with you. You were asking about why we're in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. We are there to stay, but I think we're there to stay to try to have some kind of influence over the oil.
You bet.
Otherwise, why would we have gone into Iraq in the first place?
Well, if we went in for the stated reasons, then we should have gone into Cambodia. We should have gone into Africa when the slaughters were going on. So I think it's reasonable to assume we want military bases in that area, and we want oil. Oil.
We want to have control of that oil, in some way, shape, or form.
You bet.
And Bush is going to try his best to stay in power as long as he can.
I kind of doubt that. I think that he'll go out as president on schedule. Every president we've had, sir, there have been stories during the last term that they were going to do something, some executive order, some unconstitutional something to keep themselves in office, and it's never happened. But it's been a rumor every single president we've had.
Okay. Well, what do you think about his brother jumping into the race?
I think it's a free country.
That's a possibility.
Sure.
Yeah. Try to keep a Bush in the White House.
Mm-hmm. It's called a dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Take another election like they did the last one.
Yes. Boy, the last one was worrisome, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was scary.
Yeah, scary is the right word. I think it scared me too.
Yeah, it really scared me. And then the Patriot Act and now the May 9th documents, it's like, what's next?
Well, it's always like, what's next? But you're right. The last election did scare me. I wonder how many of the rest of you watched all of that unfolding and went, oh, God, this is not looking good. First-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Bell.
Hello.
How you doing?
Fine.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said fine.
Oh, this is Sean from Northeast Massachusetts.
Yes, John.
Hi. I just want to tell you a quick story. I wanted your opinion on something. My friend's uncle is in the government. He's recently retired, and I'm not going to say his name or anything. He spoke to Mr. Gore, Mr. Al Gore, about his movie that came out recently. I'm sure you've seen. And Mr. Gore talked about how the government censored parts of his movie. And it came up in conversation about the parts that were censored. And I wanted your opinion on something. I'm not an expert on any of this, and maybe it's come from a previous show. I'm not sure. What came up was that parts of global warming came from what we actually exhale, and it's not it's not the main reason for it, but the reason why it was censored was because we were found as the U.S. not be a main contributor to global warming, but it's actually India, China, all the highly concentrated, where people are. And I wasn't, I was not quite sure as to why that would come up and why that would be censored, but, I wanted your opinion on that.
Well, my opinion is that I hadn't heard it, and I can't confirm it. However, in terms of the numbers of people inhaling and exhaling, I think we have a problem. In other words, we have too many people on the planet. It's not that we don't have enough land. It's that the natural resources that are on the planet, I think, have a limit in terms of the number of people that can be supported. What are we now, about 6 billion? Due to be 9 billion soon? That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of resources. So at some point, I think the world has got to figure out a way to limit its own numbers. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Oh, hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we were all, you had...
Got a very bad connection here.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes, you're going to have to speak up. A lot of static.
Okay. Well, you were asking for ideas about how to end, what's going on in Iraq, and I had actually called last November or so, and proposed the idea that the regime, they don't really want to end the war. They want to create chaos as some sort of smokescreen to, stay there, which is, basically what you're saying about, they want to keep the bases there and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there had been an interview with a soldier, and they had asked him what he thought the best way to, start ending the war. And he said something about as succinct as you could. He said the best way to start it would be to put his ass in a plane back home. So
the best way to stop it would be to put his backside on a plane going home?
Yeah, exactly. The best way to start the end of the war.
I see.
Would just be to,
Right.
So basically, if they wanted, an end to it, it would be ending. The Iraqi people are smart enough to take care of themselves. They've done it for a long time.
Well, you know what I think? I think if we actually just up and pulled out, which I suppose could eventually occur, if public sentiment turns against the war enough, we could do that. We could pull out. We could do a Vietnam. We could just pull out. I think that Iraq would quickly degenerate first into a warlord kind of thing, with the various factions fighting each other, and then with that pretext of the instability, Iran would quickly move to take over politically, and I think that's how it would go, and that's one of the reasons we're not going to leave. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
I'm on the air right now?
You are, yes.
Well, I'd like to talk about possibly, once we get climate control under wraps and figuring out global warming and all that, possibly using Mars as a test dummy before we try it on Earth, but just to try different things to measure and pretty much just figure out as a test dummy for controlling Earth.
Well, I'm not sure we're at all ready to change or affect the climate of Mars, but the concept of terraforming Mars is something that absolutely fascinates me. There are certain things we could do, certain launches we could make, programs we could do that would begin to terraform Mars. Now, it would take a very long time to do, but there's no reason to imagine that if we wanted to, we could not begin a program, or we could begin a program, if we wished, to initiate eventually an atmosphere on Mars, to put things that would become green, release some of the water, start an atmosphere on Mars. Wouldn't that be something? I'm Art Bell. Tim in Denton, Texas, also enjoyed the Lord of War movie. That really was a good movie, and he reminds me of a quote, and it was, where there's a will, there's a weapon. Where there's a will, there's a weapon. We'll be right back. Tamar in L.A. asks, which election was scary to you? The presidential election in 2004 or the congressional election? Of course, the presidential election is what I was referring to. That was just downright scary, and I would think that an awful lot of you would agree with me. It was disputed. It was recounted. It was kind of unsure, and it was just, it was, in this democracy, downright scary. Wildcard line, you are on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to Art Bell about the gas situation. And
I'm Art Bell. You're on the air, sir.
Oh, Art, this is Dave from Niagara Falls, New York.
Yes.
And friends of ours were talking about, you used to talk about your Metro. Do you still have it?
No, I don't have the little Metro anymore, but I have a little Chevy four-banger that's just like it.
Yeah. Do you like it as much as you like your Metro?
Pretty much, yes. Even better, perhaps.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, they don't make the Metro anymore,
No, I know. I used to have one, and a friend of mine still got one. He's redoing it right now.
Oh, what great cars they were.
Yeah, General Motors made a big mistake.
Right. Well, I've got a little Chevy Aveo now, automatic, and I really, really like it.
Oh, we were just curious talking about you, and I was just wondering.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I had to say.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah. I've got a couple of big, fun cars, but I don't drive them. I drive the little Chevy Aveo. And, for gas reasons, I don't really like, even though I love, my God, as Americans, we are in love with our cars, right? Just absolutely in love. I've got a Firebird Trans Am that, let me tell you, folks, when you get that out on the highway, it is so much fun, and it can get you in so much trouble. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mike from St. Louis.
Hi, Mike.
I was wondering, I've been listening to you since the 90s, and I remember you installed windmills and solar cells.
That's right. Yes.
I was wondering if you, I was thinking about doing the same thing, and I've read a lot, and I was just wondering if you would ever go over your system or maybe put a schematic out on your website or something, how you did it.
Oh, I suppose I could do that. It's a full system with batteries, 20-year batteries, sealed gel cell batteries, and a pair of very large inverters that produce 220 volts at 60 cycles and 60 amps each. So it's a big system. And when I bought it, it was not really financially viable. In other words, translation, it didn't pay for itself. Doing it today would probably be, aside from the batteries, a lot cheaper. So, sure, one day I'll put a schematic up or even photographs. I actually have had photographs of it up, and I'll do it again for you.
Okay, one other thing, there's a new type of solar cell, and I know you're into electronics, that's supposed to be able to generate electricity even in the shade, even though there's light hitting it.
Right.
Have you heard of that?
Well, certainly since I put in my solar cells, they've become more efficient, I believe. I've got some really good, long-lasting ones, and they've done great duty. They've been there now for quite a few years, and I suppose eventually, if I live long enough, they will begin to pay for themselves. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Oh, hello. You caught me by surprise. I was calling about two different things, Art. This is Sandra from Ohio.
Yes.
Well, one thing is that, we hear Ed Dames talking frequently about Mad Max scenarios, about the possibility of something happening in the future that could cause that.
Right.
And living up here in Ohio, it was actually in the Cleveland area. I'm referring back to when we had that power blackout in I think it was in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And the power stayed off for several days. Well, it was very hot. It was August. People in this area, it's the nicer western suburbs of Cleveland, let's say. They're not used to doing without their central air, that kind of thing. Well, everyone was very nice to each other and helpful. The first day the power went out,
right.
That was on a Thursday, I believe. The second day on a Friday, so-so. By Saturday, there was a local grocery store, a big franchise chain. The police actually had to come in and shut the thing down. It had remained open on some generator power for a limited few hours every day.
Sure.
But there were fist fights breaking out at the local grocery store.
The veil of civilization is very thin, and it's about 3 days, and things begin to break down.
Exactly.
That's true.
And there was something else I wanted to mention, if we have a moment.
Sure.
Oh, okay. You and I believe George Norrie also had talked about a question. I think Ed Dames comes into this too, about if the government is still using remote viewers and psychics for different things.
Right. I've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. Well, this surprised me, and this is around the time I started listening to Coast. I actually heard something on WTAM. It's the big local radio station here, 50,000 watts.
Oh, I know it well.
It was 2 days after 9/11. Now, I work, and for 20 years I have worked as a professional psychic and medium, and it runs in my family, so this caught me by surprise. There was an announcement on WTAM. It was probably a little bit before 1 p.m. Eastern, and I heard it in the car radio, where they said if there are any psychics, remote viewers, mediums, they had a list of categories. And they said if there is anyone with these abilities who who would think they can help us with information about this, and they're referring to 9/11. Would you please call the local office of your FBI? They specified FBI.
No
now,
kidding.
if you remember the atmosphere around 9/11,
Oh, yes, very well.
yeah, they would not have been joking. This would not have been a prank. So I heard that, and for a split second, I considered it, and I thought, boy, I must be crazy, because you know what the government does to you in your life if you know.
Well, had you come up with did you have something?
Yeah, I had information, but I just didn't want my life torn apart that way, and I'm sorry to say that. I don't believe they would have appreciated what I had to tell them.
I wonder if that was actually a government-sponsored announcement.
You know, I don't know, and they didn't say. It was a quickie. It was about a 15-second one.
Well, I'd sure love to know. So if you can do a follow-up, and, of course, WTAM probably would answer that for us. What a fascinating thing. I wonder.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. And perhaps somebody at WTAM can fill me in. I'd love to know, did you actually make such an announcement? And if so, was it at government request? You would imagine so. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Michael in Norfolk, Virginia.
Hey, Michael.
We've been talking about a lot of problems on this program that I think has a tendency to get the audience depressed. And that coupled with traditional views on Bible prophecy has a lot of people feeling kind of helpless. Now, the Bilderbergs are meeting in Istanbul, getting ready to gather there. These are people who are trying to do something about the problems that we're talking about, Art. Last year, on the 7th of June, Sean David Morton was on with George, and the question came up about the previous night's show in which some discussion was made about the rapture theory, and Sean David began to talk about where this theory had come from. Only in the latter centuries here, I think he said the 1800s or late.
Yeah, I think the rapture concept is relatively new.
Yeah. And I was so disappointed that George cut him off and didn't follow through on the subject. I think we need to get the kind of people on this show which will take Christians back to the Bible and to passages that talk about the saints taking a global kingdom they taking it by force. I think we need to get some other kind of Bible people on the Coast to Coast show so that we can talk more reasonably about the problems that we're facing in this world. And what about the option of actually praying in an organized way for Jesus to come and help solve these problems? Why don't we hear that? Because everybody believes in this rapture theory in which they
No. Not everybody believes in the rapture at all, as a matter of fact. Coast to Coast AM is not a religious program. Let me make that very clear. Now, obviously, occasionally, religion comes into it, as it would with any talk program. But the very last thing we want to make this, at least as far as I'm concerned, is a pulpit. That's for church, and it's for Sunday or whatever other day you wish to worship. But this is not the church of the air, nor do we want to make it that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Art?
Yes.
Well, just wanted to tell you one thing, that I've been listening to you for a really long time, and just listening to all the things that you've had to deal with in your life. I've been really proud of just the way you've handled everything and to still be on the air and not have lost your mind.
Thank you.
One. And for two, I've always been so interested in the different variety of people you put on your show to give us all a real look at where we really stand.
Boy, we really have had a variety, haven't we?
Oh, are you from the old days, and just dealing with a lot of sci-fi to things that are just actually happening, and now to find nanotechnologies coming through the woodwork and all these new levels of where we're going and where we're headed, and it's just, for you guys to really put us in a reality check of where we really stand, in terms of the cosmos, and not even being that little flake of sawdust. I mean, we're nothing. And so many people put so many things into such big way, when in reality it's such a small little answer that is going to save us all. In my utmost feelings of listening to the show, it's just we've got to come together. It's just there's so many wonderful things that are going on around us, but there also is a heavy level of being put in a literally censored society that we are just being held captive.
Well, there is something to that. We are becoming kind of a censored society compared to what I once saw. I do see a lot of that going on. I do see a lot of censorship. The world is in the middle of change. There have been a number of people taken off the air recently. Now, I'm not going to sit here and get into a discussion of the right and the wrong of what they said, and a lot of times it was certainly disagreeable. But there has been an awful lot of that lately. People actually getting taken off the air. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Is this Art?
Yes.
Oh, you were talking before about orbs being souls?
Yes.
And I know for a fact that that's true, because when I was about 11 years old, my mother and I were standing downstairs, and we had a bar that separated, like a snack bar that separated the kitchen from the living room.
Yes.
And I was standing on the living room side, and so I saw at first this big ball of light. We're not talking a little orb like the callers talk about. We're talking like a basketball, a perfect circle, a perfect ball, a perfect,
Okay, how do you know it was a soul?
Because later on, we seen it come down the stairs and down the hall, then it went across the bar, then that's my mother saw it and disappeared into the wall. Then a couple of hours later, we got a phone call from some family in another state that my great-grandmother had died. So it was my great-grandmother letting us know.
Well, it's possible. I don't think that conclusively proves that it was a soul, but that's one of the possibilities with orbs. And again, the other is that we've got photographic anomalies, and you can prove that to yourself. You can go out and take a bunch of flash photographs, and you're going to see things that look like orbs. On the other hand, there have been orbs seen, in the aftermath of 9/11. Some of those are very, very touching photographs. And I looked at them, and I thought, yeah, maybe. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning, sir.
This is Stephen. I'm calling you from Columbus. We just got in from a wonderful fireworks display we did late last evening.
Okay.
And I want to thank you and welcome your new child into this world.
Thank you.
Because I don't think that she can have a more wonderful daddy.
Very kind of you. Thank
you'll
you.
be able to teach her some very interesting things.
I hope so.
And sir, I'm so proud of you.
Okay, well, thank you.
You take care. And about this Iraq situation,
yes.
I think you figured it out a long time ago. We're never coming out of Iraq.
No, I don't think we are.
We wouldn't have spent $53 million on an embassy over there with 4-foot-thick walls if we were planning on leaving anytime soon.
I agree with that, man, and all of you. We're not coming out of Iraq. What we might do, though, somebody said earlier, why not sort of treat it as you do the situation in Cuba? We've got Guantanamo Bay there, and otherwise Cuba is what it is, right? So I suppose it could settle into something like that. We'd still have the presence. We'd be able to project power from that. It could be a series of permanent bases in Iraq, and otherwise we could just sort of withdraw. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hi, right now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is John.
Yes, John.
I was calling about, real quick, to share something I learned about the secret societies that everybody talks about. Kind of like whoever's controlling the world kind of deal. And it just, what their agendas are, basically. Just did some thinking and came into some conclusions. So seems to you thought about it.
Who are they?
I wasn't thinking more of who they are, is more like what they were looking for or what their agendas were.
And what's their agenda?
If to A, keep the status quo, and B, keep whatever the second coming would be at bay for as long as they can. Because when you think about it, that would be it seems the only thing that would threaten them if they're truly, in power everywhere.
Well, no matter who they are, I don't think they can do a whole heck of a lot about the second coming. And if there is actually any group or even individual in control of the world, they're doing a horrible job. That's what I think. International line, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, turn your radio off, please.
Okay, just a second.
I'm waiting.
Okay.
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Canada.
Okay.
Just across the Detroit River. And I'm on the line.
You're on the air.
Okay, thank you. We talk about gas prices and needing the U.S. for a gas and why U.S. is in Iraq. I was reading a story online about that many years ago during the Vietnam War, that every country printing the money, doing emission of money as much as they have a coverage in the gold. What happened? Because the U.S. cost for Vietnam War was too expensive, they started to printing the money, and every country in the world buying oil with the U.S. dollars. What's happening? Every country which actually printing more money than have a coverage in gold have inflation, but not U.S.
Well, that's what happens, sir, is you go into it. You can't just print money without anything backing it in the bank. All right, folks, listen. There is a limit to everything, and right now we're up against the clock and we've got to go. So reminding you, next weekend I will not be here. I think they've got George lined up, or perhaps Ian or both, to fill in. We'll be expecting Asia Rain Bell, June 1st. So that'll probably take care of my weekend and more. For this weekend, I would like to say thank you all very much for being here. Have a wonderful week ahead. For me, it's going to be a wild one. Night all.